everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. And today I'm going to talk to you about all the things I did in the month of December 2021. This is going to be my December wrap up where I talk about the books I read, the things I wrote, and some personal tidbits about my life in general. So without further ado, let's just jump into the video. So we're gonna start off with the books that I read in the month of December, and as far as books that I completed, I actually only completed 2, and they were both in the Sookie Stackhouse series. I did read quite a bit, but unfortunately I just didn't actually finish anything else in the month. But I'm not mad about it. I finished 2 books and they were worthwhile. So because I finished both in the same series, I'm just going to talk about them. I finished Definitely Dead and Altogether Dead, which I believe is the 6th and 7th book in the Sookie Stackhouse series. And I just realized that someone wrote a phone number on the back of this book. Well, we might end up getting rid of that one then, but cool. Anyway, so both of these books are in the True Blood, Sookie Stackhouse, Southern vampire novels, and I enjoyed them. I've been reading this series since 2020 and slowly making my way through them since I put them off forever. But I really wanted to dive back into the True Blood universe because I loved the show so much. So I started last year and I've been slowly making my way through them and I'm having a good time. They are a really fun series to read. For the most part, they hold up pretty well over time. There's a couple times throughout the whole series where things have been said or words have been used that you can tell is a product of the time. But for the most part, there's not too many problematic things that I've noticed in this book. And I kind of like that I'm getting really like a departure from the show. Like after book 4, like from books like 1 through 4, we're pretty consistent with the show. Now we've just like completely exited the show and it's a whole nother game. So in these books, there is a new love interest that's introduced, and Sookie is kind of starting to maybe be interested in them more than just casual, like, how is it gonna go? This love interest is a were, and that was pretty interesting because the were is a were tiger. So I was not expecting that. They do talk about weres quite often in the series and the differences between weres and shapeshifters, but I definitely did not see a were tiger coming, and we have really not seen too much like of this person's changing abilities. But yeah, it's been interesting. And then on top of that, I find that the character of Tara is starting to have a little bit more prevalence in the series, because that was a huge thing I noticed. The difference between the show and the series when I first started reading it is that Tara is barely mentioned and they're barely friends until like later. So now she's starting to be friends, but we're definitely getting a ton more characters in the series that have never been mentioned in the show. And I do understand why they would want to do that, because I think it could get very convoluted very quickly, and without having the length of time like a book series would have to expand on those, it might just bog down the story. So there's definitely like a, you know, witches that have been introduced and other like fairies creatures, and this could be a spoiler if you haven't read the series or you haven't watched the show, so just take that as well. I'll try to put like a spoiler warning somewhere. But if you've watched the show, then you know that eventually Sookie is known to be a fairy, and we didn't really get that until like book 7. So I was kind of happy that it came now, because there's still like 7 more books in this series, and I was like, okay, are we gonna build up to this like to the end? But in the show, they really focus on like all the creatures and vampires and weres like wondering what Sookie is this entire time. And in this, like, they don't ask her what she is. They don't really react to her blood. Like, they don't really feel like there's anything crazy there. But they do, like, Charlaine Harris does such a nice, like, way of incorporating it of, like, oh, there is something different about you, and you do have fairy blood, and that could be why a lot of the supernatural is attracted to you. Instead of, like, all the supernatural being like, oh my god, what is this? Like, they don't actually realize that she's anything other than human, but there might be an account for why they are attracted to her. So I thought that was kind of cool. And yeah, so those are the 2 books that I actually finished in the month. I continued to read The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. I really, to be honest, have not been in the mood to like sit down and read very much. And when I'm trying to read in bed or if I'm trying to read in the bath, I typically gravitate towards reading ebooks because it's, in my opinion, it's a lot less riskier to get my like edge of my iPad wet than it is to get the book wet and ruin it forever. Maybe that's controversial, but that's how I feel. So it's also just easier to swipe on the iPad than it is to like hold a book up in the water, especially when there's steam. And similarly for bed, so I don't have to turn too many lights on, I've been reading more ebooks. And I was reading Learn My Lesson in the month of December, which is kind of an erotic take on Disney villains. They're taking Disney villains that we know and love, but putting them in kind of a new environment and really only keeping like the core qualities of each Disney character so that it's not like copyright, but also not too weird when you're reading it. And that's the Wicked Villain series by Katie Robert. So I'm reading that during the month of December. I've been reading Last Graduate. And I have a lot of book plans in January because I think committed to too many rereads. And now we're going to see how much I can actually get done in January. So that's all the books that I read. Now on to the things that I wrote in December. Similarly, I definitely did not think I was gonna be in a little bit of a writing slump, but I don't really count it as a writing slump for December because the first 2 weeks of December I had to deal with school. So I was finishing up my finals and all my final projects and my papers, and the first 2 weeks of December I was still going to classes and finishing all that up. So I really didn't have a lot of extra time because I had so many papers due that I was a little bit overwhelmed on top of doing some other personal things. And I didn't really write anything in the first 2 weeks of December. Like the week before Christmas then, I finally had that break. And because it was the week before Christmas, I kind of just plunged into cleaning and just getting back to feeling normal after having like 4 months of 3 nights of being away and class. So I cleaned my whole house and I like got ready for Christmas, finished my Christmas shopping, wrapped my presents. I did all of that. So you know, I know it's a little bit more of my personal life, but just to kind of catch you up to speed, the first 3 weeks of December were almost a wash for writing. But from Christmas through the new year, I ended up really getting back into some of my creative roots, and I just feel like I set myself off right for 2022. So really that last week, I did a little bit more work. I did some live streams, both on my channel and other people's channels. And I was working on my synopsis and query letter for Prophecy Project. I'm about halfway through my synopsis right now for the first draft. And I am considering my synopsis as a draft right now because it's just bare bones, not really flowery, not really edited in any way. It's just me trying to get through the major plot points of the whole novel so that I can go back and like make it sound enticing. And in order to do that, I wanted to make sure I went through all of my book chapter by chapter, kind of skimmed through and wrote it in the synopsis. So I've been doing that. I've also been editing like some grammar that I've been seeing in my Prophecy Project, both from things that I'm catching as well as some things that my critique partners have been finding and just pointing out to me. I've been going along and changing those as well. So it's definitely taken a little bit longer than it could. I could definitely breeze through this and get it done, but I am taking my time to make sure that I have everything down pat. So that was happening the last week of December. Additionally, I have been back to my rom-com with my co-writer, Caitlin. We decided that, you know, in 2022, we're going to finish both of the projects that we started together. I know we were very ambitious. We thought in the month of May and in the month of November, we would co-write novels together last year in 2021. And while we worked pretty hard at both of them, they did not get accomplished. The fantasy project we co-wrote, which was the Rewrite Chronicles, the series on my channel. If you want to go watch those videos, I will leave them linked above. That is a fantasy dystopian novel, and we thought we were going to be able to write it in the month of May before I started school again. And we got pretty far. We got about halfway through a book, but we fizzled out because everything just kind of happened both in our personal lives, and that went crazy. And then the rom-com we were hoping to finish in a weekend in November, and I have that video as well. That's our writing a rom-com in a yurt for a weekend. And during that weekend, we got, again, halfway through the book, but we kind of tapped out because I could not handle everything with school. but we started writing that again, and I think we're gonna finish it very early in 2022, either January or February, and we'll let that sit and we'll kind of see. But I'm not gonna lie, going back into that rom-com and reading through some of what we wrote, I am having so much fun with this story. I think it's funny, and I think it's endearing, and I think there's a lot of good points that we're making about like sexuality and being like shoehorned into a type of writer or person. So I'm really happy with it, and I really can't wait to see like how the story is going to end. We have an outline, but you know, there's still some discovery when you're writing about how things are going to play out. And I think honestly that's pretty much been it. I want to say like with a asterisk, because I haven't been really pushing any newer projects or going back to projects, but I have been getting some kernels of ideas in the last week of December for my Project Mermaid as well as Project Vampire. And my Project Mermaid was one that I talked about in my 2022 goals video that I want to get back to and at least read through what I wrote. I decided that I was going to listen to my Project Mermaid playlist because I was like, oh, this is a pretty good playlist. Maybe it'll get me inspired. And then it got me inspired to write Project Mermaid again, which is great, but I don't need the inspiration right now. So, you know, there's that. But while I was listening to it, I was really thinking about, you know, I think the biggest flaw that I had for Project Mermaid was two things. One, I wanted to make it political, but I don't think I amped the politicalness up in the first time I wrote it, the first draft. And I want both the Sea Kingdom and the Land Kingdom to be super political and like everyone having their own agendas that will work against my main character. Like I don't want her just to have the opposition from her Sea Kingdom, but also from the land, because she's playing like kind of this double agent while she's on land, where she's trying to get closer to the prince, but so that she can use him to secure her rule in the sea. And because of that, I feel like I need to raise the stakes a little bit more and really get the Land Kingdom like against her, as well as, again, all the Sea Kingdom is trying to kill her. So it's kind of like both sides are not really in her favor, and I think I need to play that up a little bit more. So I was making notes about that. And I also made notes about the Sea Witch character. So this is like a Hunger Games meets The Little Mermaid fantasy adventure. And the Little Mermaid aspect, I do have a Sea Witch character, which is an exiled mermaid from a different kingdom. And I want that character to be a little bit more devious, because initially I wrote in the story that she wanted a favor somewhere in the book itself, in this book, for book 1. And I think what I want to do instead is I want to leave that a little bit more ambiguous and open for a potential sequel, where she's going to help my main character try to win her tasks if, when the main character wins, she does a favor for the Sea Witch to be determined what it is. And I kind of want to try to do that instead, because I think while I was writing it, I was getting stuck with what the Sea Witch was going to ask for, and I was trying to write it into the story that the Sea Witch was going to call her back and make her do something, but I didn't know what that was. So I think I solved that problem now, so I'm going to have to go back and tweak a little bit of things, so that way the Sea Witch isn't asking for something during the book, but it's hinted that she'll have it once my main character secures the throne. So yeah, that's probably a little bit too much information, but I'm just really excited that I'm working through these things. And like I said in my 2022 goals video, I want to read through it, edit some of it, and make a plan and plot out what the rest of the book's going to be like. And I think those two factors will help me so much more now that I figured it out. And yeah, that's what I wrote in the month of December. I didn't think I was going to write anything. And as I was getting closer to Christmas, because I was off that week from school, and in my head, I really wanted to dive into writing, but I think I really needed to recharge and reset my space beforehand, and that helped a lot. So I'm happy that I started to get to write again, and I'm just really hopeful for the new year that a lot of these projects I started are going to be finished. And then moving on to some personal tidbits. So I have done quite a lot in the month of December. Obviously the holidays happened, and I did the whole Christmas celebration with my family. And like I mentioned already, I did the wrapping and all the gift stuff. I also did a Yule celebration with my two friends, Maggie and Caitlin. And we're going to try to make that more of a celebration, similar to what we do on Litha and Samhain. We think we want to also start to do a Yule get together. And I think that's perfect, because I definitely feel a lot more connected to Yule than I do Christmas anymore. So I had a really good time, and we wrote a little, we got a pine cone and we wrote little intentions for the year 2022, and we melted candle wax onto the papers on the pine cone. So it's a whole little ritual, and we are going to either burn or bury that pine cone to cultivate all of our wishes into actions for the new year. So that was really fun, and it was a nice little tradition that we started this year, and I loved it. In the month of December, it was my birthday, and I did turn 30. And again, I have a whole vlog about that. It's not very long and it's not very detailed because I was just having so many things happening that weekend that I would forget to film or forget to include things, but it was really nice. And if you're interested, you can go watch that. But otherwise, yeah, I turned 30 and I am here for whatever this year brings. I also got 2 tattoos in the month of December, and I was gonna wear a shirt that would easily show this off, but then I forgot. So I'm gonna have to lift my sleeve up for one of them. This was not easy to do. It kind of hurts. The first tattoo I have is my little bee, and I love how it came out. So this was part of my Raven cycle tattoo, which this is obviously the ley lines from the Raven boys, and the bee also plays a part of that, so I got that. My second tattoo is my wedding band. I got a bunch of little leaves on my finger for my ring finger, and my husband got the like branches on his. And I am in love with both. I'm very happy with both of my tattoos. I do eventually want to actually do a half sleeve, which is why I'm starting to add tattoos going up. And I do know what I want for my half sleeve. I want to have a goddess with horns and if not a raven feather, because the goddess that I would like to inspire is the Morgan. And initially, like, it wasn't gonna be a particular goddess, but the Morgan was like speaking to me and was like, nope, this is who I am and this is what you're gonna get. So I'm gonna have a Morgan inspired witchy sleeve. Like, that's my theme. So I don't know when it's gonna happen. In theory, I would love it to be 2022, but I think it's gonna be too expensive for me to do in 2022. So maybe 2023. We'll see how it goes. And ultimately, I mean, my December has definitely, like, it felt like the longest month of the year, because I think half the month was spent with me going like gung-ho on school and work. And then the second half of the month was everything kind of slowing down and kind of just me being able to reset, which was really nice. I had work, which was virtual for like 2 weeks, and then I worked from home for a week and really didn't have a ton to do. So I was able to catch up on some trainings in the counseling and psychology field, which honestly were really valuable to me. So I'm glad I was able to do them. And I had 3 days off of work for the holidays, and that almost never happens. So I just got to enjoy doing whatever I wanted. And ultimately, I feel connected again and secure and just very optimistic about the new year. And it's kind of weird because in 2020, like looking back when the pandemic started and how rough I felt in the beginning of the pandemic, my 2020 ended up actually being a very good year for me after that initial rough shakeup and trying to right myself with the anxiety and depression that I was feeling. But 2020 was a pretty good year overall. I was incredibly creative. I completed and started new goals. And because I was really forced to do the isolation thing, it really made me value things a lot more. And then 2021, I thought was going to be more optimistic, and it did not turn out the best. Like where some people really suffered in 2020, I had more suffering in 2021 and additional anxiety with going back to school and stuff like that. But it ended on such a good note, and I am very thankful for that. And I'm, like I said, truly just looking forward to what the new year brings. So with that, I'm going to end the video here. Let me know what you guys did in the month of December. What did you celebrate? What did you read? What did you write? Any interesting tidbits that you have for the end of 2021. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.